All right, Adam, thank you. And let's focus on Virginia right now because voters in the Commonwealth will make their voices heard on Super Tuesday. The latest poll of Virginia voters from Monmouth University has Senator Bernie Sanders and Michael Bloomberg with 22% each. The former VP Joe Biden with 18% inside that margin of error. Mike Valerio is here to talk with me about Virginia voting. And Mike, the Bloomberg campaign seems to think that Bernie Sanders could put other Democrats at risk in Virginia. This is something we've heard
That's
about.
right. Yeah. And, we've heard about it because there's a memo that we've obtained here at WSA 9 from the Bloomberg campaign. And it says that Virginia voters specifically, Virginia is one of the top tier states voting on Tuesday. Everybody in Virginia has a lot to think about, not just the presidential nominee, but whoever they pick. And if they pick Sanders, according to this internal polling that the Bloomberg campaign has done, that could severely weaken Democrats who are already in power. You have to think about Abigail Spanberger, the CIA former intel specialist, and Elaine Luria, the former Navy helicopter pilot, who won seats in Trump country in Virginia. The Bloomberg campaign, through their internal polling, which we reviewed this afternoon, says, look, if Sanders is the nominee, these Virginia Democrats who barely won, weren't really expected to win, very close races, could be in jeopardy. And everything that Democrats fought so forcefully to obtain here, new power in the state, will be gone. So Elizabeth Warren got the message. So did Tom Steyer to forcefully attack Bloomberg.
They all got the message tonight.
And who emerged unscathed? Joe Biden. So we'll see if he benefits from that line of attack, courtesy of the Bloomberg campaign.
He seems to live another day because the sense was if he didn't make it today, that wasn't going to work out for him so well.
That's right.
All right, thanks.